Hey everyone, it's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ Stocks, crypto assets, news, and interviews. Today's Friday, May 2nd. Happy Friday. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at Ripple's power move. Could they potentially acquire Circle? And for how many billion? We'll discuss all of the news. There was an offer that was rejected, and they might see it increase almost 4 times the amount. So things are heating up in a big way. To see them, acquire Hidden Road over $1 billion. They're into custody now. It's literally the Amazon of crypto in the making. And we'll take a look at the XRP price chart as well. I'll give my thoughts and opinions on that. Spoiler alert, we do have a bearish pattern that's potentially forming, and we could see a little bit more downside in the short term before we see some major momentum. I think over the next couple of weeks, we should start to see a recovery in the price. Before we get to it, as always, this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Full disclosure, I do own XRP. It's my largest holding in my crypto portfolio by a long shot. And this is not financial advice. Never buy or sell anything based on anything that I say or write. You can also follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. Handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. So here was the article by investing.com, but it was reported from Bloomberg. Ripple's $5 billion bid for stablecoin issuer Circle, which is behind USDC, was rejected. And they're currently planning a potential takeover bid for $20 billion. After that initial $5 billion was declined. So if we see, I think they'd be crazy not to. There's a lot of people thinking that this might be a bad deal for Ripple. Personally, I think it's a great deal. They're going to bring it all under one umbrella, and they'll be able to use the Ripple branding, and they're going to dominate. Like, they would easily take RLUSD to new heights. They're going to do, other currencies as well. They're going to have stable coins for the euro, the yen. All of these things will be coming to the XRP ledger essentially as well. And as we know, it'll all operate on a small amount of XRP being burned every transaction. And eventually, USDC, if they can put that under one umbrella, think about it. That's billions and billions of dollars that they're able to tap into just through a way of acquisition, right? So not only will they have the organic growth, they're going to be able to go out there and just, while most companies in the space right now are struggling to even, stay alive, whether or not they're getting sued by the SEC. And I think that's a testament too, right? Like, not only are companies struggling with, just the way the interest rates are, tariffs and whatnot, you got a company like Ripple who's been sued by the SEC. It's been through the ringer. It's been through the regulatory gauntlet. It's essentially been given regulatory clarity in the US in and of itself, not a security, not even something Bitcoin has. So, it's been vetted, and there's no company quite like Ripple, in my opinion. And it just goes to show you, like, they were sued by the SEC, the U.S. government, even the executives, right, Brad and Chris, and they come out with flying colors, right? So this, and again, while most companies and the rest of the world is sort of struggling, it's crazy to see that they're going to be potentially upping it to $20 billion. I think that is wild. And for anybody to say that Ripple or XRP is a shitcoin or Ripple's a terrible company, it's like, dude, like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, this company, when it's all said and done, mark my words, Ripple will be the most valuable company on the planet. It'll be more valuable than Tesla, Amazon, Apple, you name it. It'll be bigger than all of them. And we don't know how long. Maybe it might be 10 years, might be 20 years, could be 5 years. Who knows? Things move at breakneck speed when it comes to blockchain and crypto. It's the internet of value, right? The internet of money versus the internet of information. And I'm very confident that Ripple will become the most valuable company on the planet. And then I bet you XRP will become the most valuable digital asset. Let's hear from Chief Legal Officer Stuart Alderodi.
I feel good. I condensed 6 years of my life into 60 seconds.
Hi, just restarted here.
I feel good. I condensed 6 years of my life into 60 seconds. Hi, this is Stu Alderodi, and this is Crypto in a Minute. So why did the SEC drop its appeal against Ripple? I think the real question is, why did they bring the case at all? The SEC has not only dropped its appeal against Ripple, they've now dropped every case against every crypto company in the United States. Why? Because the SEC has now admitted what we've always been saying, that you can't bring enforcement actions for violating the law without first explaining what the law is. And we never had clear laws, rules, and regulations regarding crypto in this country. So we're going to clean up the mess. We're going to get out of the courtroom. We're going to get back to running business. And we're going to now press forward, working with Congress, to get smart crypto regulation in place that protects consumers, that protects the integrity of the market, that keeps bad actors out, and most importantly, allows the innovation to flourish.
Remember, folks, these people aren't stupid. This is all by design. The whole world is definitely a stage. It's not just a coincidence that, a new administration, a new SEC comes in, and then all of a sudden everything didn't make any sense and we were right the whole time and there was no clear rules of the road, even though the previous regime was saying, oh, it's all clear and blah, blah, blah. But the other people in the SEC and the other commissioners didn't really, blow the horn either, right? It was all orchestrated. Nobody wanted to go against it. They have their talking points now that there's a new administration. Mark Ueda, the acting chair, before Paul Atkins was just sworn in, and he came out with all these new, revelations, right? And it's just political theater and bureaucratic theater. I don't pay too much attention to it. All the major companies, the companies that end up, changing the world and putting a dent in the universe, to quote one of the Ripple employees, I can't remember if it was a Sperler or not, but to every single company that is going to change the world ends up going through that regulatory gauntlet and quite often ends up getting sued. And it's usually just a vetting process, and whether or not it needs some sort of legal clarity. And as the saying goes, right, first they laugh at you, ignore you, they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win, right? And we've already been through the fight you phase. Now we're into the win phase, and things are about to heat up in a big way. Speaking of heating up, it could be a little bit longer of a time frame here yet. It's looking pretty bearish here on the short-term time frame. If we look at the daily time frame, we did have an inverse head and shoulders here that confirmed, and then we had an EMA 12 and 26 bull cross, but I'm a little concerned that, we only topped out about halfway to that target. So we came, in terms of the inverse head and shoulders target, we came within about 12%. The fact that, we went straight into daily consolidation after and didn't continue that momentum, and now we're at risk of an EMA 12 and 26 bear cross, also a head and shoulders potentially forming. So if we do form a right shoulder here, we would need to break the high of the previous daily candle and then start the daily bounce. And then anything somewhere around that 230 area, that's the potential for a right shoulder. And then if we come down and then form a right shoulder, a daily lower high and a lower low, that would give us a daily downtrend all at the same time, an EMA 12 and 26 bear cross, and a head and shoulders pattern confirmation. So if we just take our measured move there from the high to the low, move it out to our neckline support, the measured move would be down at around $1.89. And again, this makes sense to me. We're still probably, I would say, at least 2, maybe 3 weeks away before we see, maybe even a month before I'd say 2 to 4 weeks before we see those this MACD on the weekly cross bullish. And we still have yet to close over the 10-week moving average. You can see we've been rejecting for about 3 months now. And then on the daily time frame, we have a death cross that's potentially forming here with the 50-day and the 200-day moving average. So if we can just get this out of the way, more than likely see that head and shoulders confirm, come down to around $1.89, I think is probably the most likely scenario. I mean, obviously news can change it. If the rest of the sector starts to see some news or, specific news to Ripple or XRP, we might start to see some bump up here in the price. But if we zoom out to the weekly time frame as well, you can see we could see an EMA 12 and 26 bear cross. That's probably at least a week or two away, I would think. And then if we form a weekly higher low somewhere around that $1.89, which would be the the head and shoulders target, that would form a weekly higher low. And this could be a weekly inverse head and shoulders. So if we do come down here and test that 190, 189, that could be our right shoulder in the inverse head and shoulders on the weekly time frame. And then, we want to maintain that support because we have nothing until 161 and then 150 psychological. If we zoom out here, yeah, we do have the 50 weekly there at 143, so quite a bit of support there, around $1.50. But again, still in a weekly downtrend, we have lower highs and lower low pattern, and then we would need to top out on this bounce. Anything under 259 on this weekly bounce is just a weekly lower high. So once we do top out, we'll see potentially if we can get an inverse head and shoulders here. And it's just the opposite, right? On a head and shoulders, the right shoulder ends up being a downtrend confirmation, which with a lower high and a lower low, whereas on an inverse flip side of that, you have your low, your high, your higher low, and the higher high, which would be your right shoulder in the inverse head and shoulders and the uptrend once that inverse head and shoulders confirms. So hopefully that makes sense. We did cool off the RSI quite a bit here, but again, I'm thinking that we're more than likely going to see a little bit more weakness here in the short term. Like I said, a potential drop down to around $1.90, maybe even down into $1.80, and then I think we're going to see some major momentum into the end of May and into June. We know that the ETFs have been delayed for XRP, and a few other ones have been delayed as well. And then it's mostly around mid to the end of June. So I think there's a very real chance that we get ETFs for, Solana, XRP, there's Dogecoin, Litecoin. We see, I think Paul Atkins said when he came into the SEC, there was like 70 ETF filings alone. So, and it's not just crypto that he has to, and ETFs and whatnot in crypto, it's ETFs, the whole SEC, every ETF in the world essentially, right? And all stocks and securities. So he has a lot of work ahead of him. But these ETFs going live, and then also crypto legislation in the U.S. They want to get a stablecoin bill. They want to get market structure, and there's a good chance that that happens in the next couple of months. The goal is to get it done by August recess, which would be the end of August. So again, makes a lot of sense that we would see the market really start to heat up into June, in my opinion, especially with the ETFs and legislation in the U.S. all aligning at the same time. And this bull market that we're in, it's coming to a close, in my opinion. We're on the cusp of full-blown alt season. We've already seen, a glimpse into it, but I think we're almost into the thick of it here soon. And it's going to dwarf every other alt season, in my opinion. It's going to be the mother of all, the holy grail of all alt seasons, because this is the first time that we're going to have legal clarity in the U.S. potentially. And banks have been greenlit. They've been giving the basically the go ahead, right? Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Well, that's a thing of the past. And just wait to see what happens when these big institutions come in and the floodgates get open. But let me know what you think of this news in the comment section below. Pretty astounding to just continue to see Ripple, whip out $1 billion here and there. If they're able to pull this off and acquire Circle, look out, everybody, because there's no stopping the Ripple train after that. All right, it's Rod with the Pow Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you again on the next video.